Hello, you guys. I'm hopping on today to answer some questions that you guys have submitted about piano, about music, about ministry. We had our night of worship yesterday, and we played with stems. I'm curious if you guys have ever played with stems. Let me know. Hey, Caitlin. Hey, Lorraine. Hey, Stacy. Hey, you guys. So I had a question from somebody who was wanting to know, once you learn inversions, what's the next step? So once you learn inversions, then the next step for you is to start learning songs. If you are playing songs and you don't really know your inversions yet, maybe you're playing all of your songs in root inversion, I would highly encourage you to make yourself learn inversions. Here's the reason inversions are important. Because they're going to allow you to make less mistakes. It's going to make it much easier for you to play songs, and it's going to make you a better piano player. So if you want to be a better piano player, take my advice, just do it, learn inversions, get it out of the way, and you're going to be so glad that you did. If you have any questions as you are joining, drop them in the comments below and I will answer them. So if you enrolled in the free piano series that we did, the next step for you would be to join At Your Own Pace. That opens in October, I believe. So just make sure you get on the wait list for that. You can go to thetunebucket.com. Okay, second thing, Marquetta, I think that you requested to be in the video. Is that what you wanted to do? I can bring you up if so. The second thing I wanted to address is for those of you who are leading music departments or leading bands and you don't feel like you quite have a musical ear, here are some tips for you to get a well-rounded sound with your band. We'll start with the organ player. So your organ player should not be choppy on the organ. They shouldn't be playing the organ like a piano. That's not what the organ is for. Now, I've had some people ask, don't you put like beginner musicians on the organ or beginner musicians on second keys? You can put a beginner musician anywhere, right? If you have other people on the team that can kind of support them, they could play drums or bass or even keys. It's how you play an instrument. But there are certain techniques for instruments that your musicians need to be using. So on the organ, they should be crawling almost like a spider. Their hands should be crawling, so it creates that sustained sound. It's nice for them to know how to use the floor pedals, even though they may not play them during service if you have a bass player, because it just sounds too muddy. But because that's the full feel of the organ. I'm an organ player first before I was ever a piano player. I'm a piano player by default. So organ is my love. Second thing about the organ is your drawbars are not your volume. If you have a musician who's using drawbars as volume in every song they're ending up pulling out all the drawbars at the end of the song, it's going to give a really shrill, tinny sound to it. And you don't want that. So find some lessons on YouTube or even like have somebody in and come train them so they can learn how to use an organ properly. Your volume pedal on with their foot is what's going to control the volume. There's something else in organ. Oh, I know what it is. So if you're playing the organ, you should be very familiar with how to use the Leslie switch. You don't just play and let the Leslie either have vibrato or no vibrato the whole song. You're wanting to switch off and on. That's what gives the organ its beauty and dynamic. If you're going to say a rule of thumb, I'm going to say almost every line of the song you should probably be switching your organ Leslie. Okay, Brittany Fishburne says, how to move past just chords, past breaking them, etc., and keeping rhythm without playing on the beat. That's a good question. I would recommend playing with drum loops. You can download them from Loops by CW Mobile. If that's a little much for you, you can always just use the Pro Metronome app I know it's for Apple devices. I'm not sure about Android, but there are tons of metronome apps that you can use. And then just practice playing along with it and not keeping the beat. Let the tempo, the metronome, or the drum loop keep the beat. That's a good question. If you guys are just joining, if you have any questions about music or piano or ministry, drop them below and I'll answer them. Okay, so that's all that you're going to be looking for in your organ player. Your piano player needs to know how to play inversions. They have to know how to use the sustain pedal. If it sounds muddy, or it sounds like something's like running together, or if it sounds choppy, or they're trying to overplay, they've got to learn how to use your sustain pedal. Here's what your sustain pedal does. It helps you not overplay or keep the beat, because when you first start out on a song, you're not going to be playing the same way that you do when you're in a song and you're on verse 3 or you're on the bridge, right? You're going to have more volume, you're going to have more emphasis on that bridge, and that first one, really you should bring it down. Your sustain pedal is going to help you do that. Another thing for piano players is learn how to use your keyboard. This is for any musician. Learn how to use your instrument. We are in the process of purchasing a keyboard for the church right now, and my biggest concern is I don't want to overbuy. I've seen people overbuy keyboards, and this was the keyboard back in the day. This might tell you my age, but a Korg Triton was what everybody had, and everybody bought a Korg Triton, and it was a couple $1,000s, but the only thing people did with it was played the piano, or maybe they used like an e-piano sound every once in a while, but all those buttons and all those recording features and everything that goes into it, they never used, and it was such an expensive purchase for a sound. Okay, that's why I really push you guys, if you're wanting to look for a new keyboard, look on Facebook Marketplace. Don't try to buy something new unless you really are into keyboards and you know what you're doing. Your keyboard player should be able to really build a song. So when we are getting into the bridge, say, we'll talk about Believe for it, because that's a song we've done a lot recently. So you are the way. Once you get to that bridge part, they need to be adding more runs, adding more fills, and not just playing in that 2-octave span right around middle C, okay? You want to move your hand up to give the song a little more dynamic. Your bass player should be playing in the pocket. Here's my deal with bass players, and I love bass players. One of my good friends, best friends, is a bass player. I had to check my English. If you can't play the notes of the song, like just the basic chords, don't try to put in any fills, okay? What we need from bass players is just to play the basic notes of the song, right? Okay, get those, and then you can add fills, add them tastefully. This is for all your musicians. You don't want your piano player and your organ player and your guitar player and your bass player all doing fills all throughout the song, because it's going to sound like a mess. Less is more. If you have one instrument, then that instrument's carrying 100% of the music, right? If you have 2 instruments, then they're splitting, so it's 50% for each. So if you get up to 5 instruments, then all of those instruments are all playing 20% of the music, which means if I'm playing 20% of the music, I'm going to keep it pretty simple on verse 1. I'm probably going to keep it pretty simple on the chorus. I might add a few fills, but it's going to be sparingly, and it's going to be tastefully, okay? Your drummer needs to have a solid foot pedal. I can never remember what the name of that drum is called. It's not the floor tom. Does anybody know what it's called? This just shows you how much I know. And then the ability to play with the hi-hat open is really going to make a difference. It's going to add dynamic when you're going into bridges or you're trying to really drive a song. Those are the things that you want to look for. Thank you, Alex. A bass drum. And again, drummer, keep it simple. Make sure that you're playing on the drum loop. It's not always drummers that push the rhythm. I know drummers get a lot of heat for that. I've seen drummers get in trouble for making the song fast. And sometimes it's not the drummer. Sometimes they're trying to keep up with us because we're pushing them to play faster, and what are they going to do? Keep playing the same tempo? That's why I love drum loops. It just brings everybody together. Your second keyboard player needs to be playing inversions. They need to be using their sustain pedal. All of your musicians need to be changing chords at the same time. So if one person is punching a chord and the other person is playing it straight, like on the downbeat, it's not going to sound like a cohesive band that's playing a song. It's going to sound like we just got up and we're just playing whatever together, right? There are some sounds, we have found this out. I think we have a Korg Triton for our second keyboard. And we use the sounds on it. I push them to find exclusive sounds for all their songs. But there is a brass sound on our second keyboard that doesn't sustain. Isn't that weird? And I'll tell the musicians sometimes, use your sustain pedal, and they're like, this sound doesn't work with that, so I have to be reminded of that. So that's just something for you to know. If you have a similar keyboard that maybe doesn't sustain all the instruments or all the sounds, maybe just try a string sound and see if it will sustain. Because at first we thought, oh, the sustain pedal isn't working. It was working, it's just how the sound was programmed. So your second keyboard player can play the octave in their left hand if they want. It's good for them to do that, especially if they're starting out. Play chords in the right hand. They can also play one finger fills. Sometimes, depending on the sound, I'll tell the second keyboard player to play an octave higher. Because what we have a tendency to do is turn everything up. I can't hear this, turn it up. I can't hear this, turn it up. I can't hear this, turn it up. Well, you can only turn stuff up so much before it becomes like a roaring mess, right? So start paying attention to the octaves that people are playing in. That's another reason, going back to piano, why when you get to the bridge, it's nice to do fills that are a little higher, because then those fills stand out a little more. You can come back to your chord. Okay, same thing with second keys. If they're playing a brass or a strings kind of sound, have them go an octave higher, and then all of a sudden you'll be able to hear that sound. If you are implementing a second keyboard player, you can just always start them off with one note. That's a super easy way to get somebody on the platform, and then graduate them to chords. Okay, so those are my tips for you guys. Last night we had 2 brand new piano players play for our night of worship, and I'm so proud of them. I used stems to have them play along with the first time in service, because it added a lot more fullness to the songs. We did Great Jehovah. Have you guys done that song? We love it. It goes over so well. Great Jehovah by J.J. Hairston. And then we also did Release the Sound. And we used the stem from, I think it was the Tasha Cobb stem that we used. So that was a lot of fun. So if you guys are training musicians, I highly recommend using stems. And if you have any questions about those, I would be more than happy to answer them, because we've tried them for a while and we've figured out what works for us. We're not super fancy. We like to keep it simple. So, all right. If nobody's told you today, guys, I believe in you. If you are in charge of the music department at your church, and you play the piano, I would highly recommend you joining the Piano Players Coaching Group. It opens in just a few weeks. We only open it twice a year, so make sure you get on the wait list at pianoplayerscoaching.com. Put your email in, and you will know as soon as it opens. It will only be open for 4 days. So you do want to make sure that you get in. We have some really exciting things happening for the rest of the year in the coaching group. You're going to get live group coaching classes every week with me. We deep dive into all sorts of things, and I show you guys exactly how to implement those, okay? So make sure you join the wait list. Thank you guys for sharing this video with someone that you know that it would help. It means a lot. And if you know someone who would benefit from the Piano Players Coaching Group, please send them that website. It's pianoplayerscoaching.com. I'm going to sign off. See you guys later. Bye, everybody.